Listeners, Mark Bird, the podcast and virtual summit launch coach here. And one of the things that I feel like we all need to think about more, like we think about business, we think about growth, we think about all this stuff, but one of the things that is going to get you really far in life and in business is your kindness, because kindness is something that attracts people to you in a positive way. If you show kindness to others, they're going to pay more attention to you. You're going to have higher quality conversations. And all of these are very helpful in a business and life context. And the guest who joins us today, who's going to share with us how we can become kinder individuals, make the world a kinder place, she is the creator of the Valentino The Love Bunny brand, which has products like the Valentino book series, plush toys, and an animated television series. Our guest is a trained hospice volunteer, a trained court-appointed special advocate, and she worked with children at the local juvenile hall in Santa Barbara, California. So our guest who joins us for this episode of Breakthrough Success is none other than Margarita Fairbanks. Margarita, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
And I'm absolutely delighted by the message that you have, because kindness is something that is going to carry you so far. It's one of those things where it's not just one of those things that makes you better, but it's one of those things that makes the people around you, the people who you engage with, better. So I feel like this is very important stuff that is really going to resonate with a lot of people. Before we get into the kindness piece, though, can you just share with us a little bit on Valentino the Love Bunny? Because I know there's a powerful story behind that. It does connect to kindness. So I'm wondering if you could jump into that a little bit first.
Well, I'll tell you, it started when I was quite young, and I was raised with giving to others. I was raised in volunteerism. You mentioned that I'm a hospice volunteer, a CASA volunteer. This is a person who interfaces with children who have been neglected or abused. And I would go in and work with each member of their social support team. So their teachers, their doctors, their parents. It's a very difficult job, but bottom line is that I just have always felt compelled to give. You know, I just recently heard at a Veterans Day celebration, one of the people said, the call to service has no sound, but I hear it. And so I heard that at a very young age. And when I turned 50 years old, I pretty much broke my life up into thirds, thinking that from 50 on would be the last third. And I've had a very beautiful, wonderful life, a lot of experiences. And I said, okay, with this last third, I'm going to dedicate myself to trying to make the world a better place for others. And so how do I do this? Well, I had this gorgeous bunny, this beautiful Valentino the Love Bunny, who had a black heart on his face, another on his cheek. And he brought me such comfort and joy. And I said, well, maybe I have to make this bunny and the way that he makes me feel, how can I share this with others? And so I felt, well, I'll start with children, because children are open. They're still willing and able to learn. And so I thought this was a wonderful place. And therefore I created this award-winning book series.
And I mean, with animals, I mean, I feel like animals really, like dogs for me, because I have a dog, they really allow you to think differently. Like when the dog comes and greets you, like it's just like so much kindness. Like the dog acts like I haven't seen you in years. And some animals, like in Margarita's case, Valentino the Love Bunny, really create that kind of impact. And you can see it in some animals, and you can see it in a lot of people too, this ability, like, you know, the kindness factor. And I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the simple ways where we could just be kinder to people. What have you found? How have you been able to help children be kinder? Because I know that's where you started. So I wonder if you could share some thoughts on that.
Well, exactly. I mean, one of the very first ways, you know, we perceive the world through our eyes. I just started noticing in my day-to-day life that people were not connecting, and I would be, say, in the grocery store going down the aisle, and here I see a person coming. I happen to really love people, all people, and I love to engage and connect, and I would be ready to have a big exchange of smiles, and then I kept seeing people turning away. And so I would say, beginning with eye contact. Eye contact is really powerful. Then a smile. A smile in and of itself is very easy. It's very easy for the person giving it. It's actually healthful. Smiling actually makes you live longer. It releases endorphins, these beautiful hormones in the body. It's like a natural drug that we've been given to make us feel good. And in fact, they say you can trick yourself into feeling happy by smiling more. And these are with studies. This isn't my personal opinion. I've done the research. There are studies after studies that show this. Another huge one, saying please and thank you every day without fail for the little things that people do for us. It makes a huge, huge difference. Giving a compliment, striking up a conversation with a stranger, or maybe you hold open the door for the person behind you. Or what about when you're driving on the freeway and you can see that somebody is really anxious to move over into your lane? Let them in. Take your foot off the gas. Let them in. Sometimes I'll be in line somewhere and the person in front of me is maybe 10 cents short, or 50 cents, maybe even $1. I've even gone up to $90 if I'm honest. And I just say, hey, let me take that. I'll pay for it. All of these things. Give up a seat to someone who needs it more than you do. If you see an older person, it looks like they could sit down, get up. And it just feels so good, Mark. It really feels good.
I mean, just hearing those examples, I can relate to some of them that I've done, some of them that I've witnessed. And there is that feel good feeling where in that intro, I talked from like a context where it's like, you have better conversations. It helps you in business because people view you in a better light, but also self-worth, because at the time of recording, we are like all around a month away from Christmas. So that's not going to be the case when this episode comes out. But right now, as we're recording, we're about a month away from Christmas. And I think of Scrooge because Scrooge is like, this wealthy guy, has all this stuff happening like that you would view as like, the definition of success that most people have. But the guy realizes that it's just been a mess when he goes through that past, present, future experience. And it's when he starts becoming kind to people and stuff where he really starts to tap into his self-worth. So it's not just a business context. It's also for you to feel good about yourself. And one of the things that I do want to point out and like expand on is one of the things you mentioned is like letting the car like pass you, like letting the car in. And that is definitely a kind gesture, but I feel like it's harder for people to do it under certain circumstances. Like if you are like, you've been in the car for 7 hours straight and you're having a bad day, you're less likely to give them that space. So when the day isn't in your favor, or like you've got different things happening to you that, they just like damper you a bit, how do you still remain kind despite those circumstances?
I just love what you said, Mark, because it's in that very moment when you can just go beyond all those things you described. I'm having a horrible day. And then, you can see, you can feel it, and you can see, you let that person in. And in that moment, it has a healing effect on you. It actually calms you because you feel that you have done something to promote kindness in your day, in our humanity. It's the act of doing it that's actually the reward. You've heard that. It's in giving that we receive. That's really very, very true. And that's why when you're having your worst day, that's even more of a moment to try to get out of that and beyond that. And it helps you. It calms you. That was one of the things that was so amazing about Valentino, and why he inspired me, was because I could feel if I was upset, if I felt tension. Thing about a rabbit is that you have to be, they're very specialized animals. You can't come to them with anxiety because they're super, super sensitive. So you have to calm yourself. And that's what I started noticing, that being calm for the bunny was making me calm for me. And in addition to this, when you just start practicing these small acts of kindness that have such an amazing yield, you start feeling the difference. You start feeling that something is changing, something is happening for the better.
We have more great content coming up in this episode, but first we have a message from today's sponsor, Jobber. Jobber's award-winning software helps small home service businesses organize their entire operations, from scheduling jobs and managing their crews to invoicing customers and collecting payments. That way, you can spend more time on the services you're already great at. Job by job, business by business, Jobber is transforming the ways their customers deliver service. Start your free trial over at getjobber.com/breakthrough. All right, let's get right back into the episode. Yeah, and I mean, with the animals, again, like you bring that up, I'm thinking of an episode I did earlier with Rachel Augusta, which we will link to in the show notes, where it's an episode where we talk about how like the animals kind of read you in a sense, where like if they're stressed, they'll feel it, and if you're happy, they'll feel it. So I'm just gonna throw that reference in there for people who are interested in checking out after you guys listen to this episode. But I mean, it's just really fascinating, just like how easy it is to be kind, and just like, it's very simple stuff, like having an extra dollar for someone to pay for their like coffee or whatever. One of the things that you hear thrown a lot now, I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, so if you know his thoughts, like my thoughts at the same time. There are some people who say kindness is for the weak, which like disturbs me, but it's something that I feel like enough people have that perception to the point where it needs to be addressed. Like you hear nice guys finish last. So I'm wondering how people who maybe they have that mentality can flip it around. So they use their kindness and they don't finish last. They finish first because of their kindness. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are for people who have that kindness is for weakness perception.
Well, I think that goes a little bit along with the stranger danger. Have you heard that expression?
Yes.
So I think that's part of a self-protection mechanism. So maybe it isn't because so much they feel weak, but it's that vulnerability, and people feel vulnerable. But it's also within that vulnerability that you become strengthened. The more willing you are to open yourself up, the stronger you can become. And for people who, I would say, for people who think that kindness is some kind of weakness, it's just something that they need to evolve out of, because kindness takes a lot of strength. I mean, just based like the example you gave me, well, what if I'm having a horrible day? You see? So let's reverse that. Let me just throw a little kindness into that. It's just like the frosting on the cake. It's when the good stuff can begin. And maybe those people just haven't had enough experience with it to have it really illuminated for them.
Yeah, I mean, really great points. Again, I completely disagree with the thought that I posed as a question, but it is something that enough people think about or believe to the point where I felt like I definitely had to address it. So kindness, I feel like, is something that we should all be practicing. How do you recommend like incorporating kindness throughout the day? Is it something that you're super conscious of, or is it something that automatically happens eventually?
No, I think it's something, it's like anything, a habit. You can form a habit just like any habit in a pretty short amount of time. It's repetition. So yes, you do have to be conscious of it. I'm sure you've heard the, random acts of kindness. Well, I'm trying to promote deliberate acts of kindness. Very much in the same way that kids have a curriculum at school for academics. We need a basic level of decency with one another. It should be very automatic for human beings to be able to connect with each other in just in a common way. It doesn't have to be, I'm taking this person home with me, but just a nod of the head. I feel like we need to revisit some of the habits that back in the old days, where people it was common courtesy to give a nod of acknowledgement. We need to acknowledge each other as human beings. We're all in this together. So, you just start doing it. You just, you look at a person, that person you might normally pass by on the street, you give them a look, you make eye contact, a little grin. It takes nothing more. It actually doesn't even really take effort. It takes more effort to frown than it does to smile. And that's just a scientific fact. Facially, it's easier to smile. It's more natural than frowning. And yet you see a lot of people frowning and with these very stern and very serious looks. So yeah, you do have to be conscious and make a decision. I'm going to engage with my fellow humans. And in that small way, and with those small actions, it really goes a long way. You've heard that pay it forward expression, I'm sure of that. And this is a way to do it with those things that I was talking about. So, you're going to pick up your dry cleaning, somebody's in front of you, grab the door, open it, you both go in together. It makes good energy.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the deliberate instead of random acts of kindness. I'm actually going to pose a challenge for all the Breakthrough Success listeners. I've only done this a few times, but if you do a random act of kindness and you post it in the Breakthrough Success Facebook group, like if you just search Breakthrough Success on Facebook, I think the link might be markberry.com/Facebook. It's been a while since I put in the plug, but if you put some random act of kindness you did for someone today and you post it in the group, I will give you something. Just like message me and like let me know, and I'll see the post, because I feel like if there's more people in the Breakthrough Success community and like communities in general performing acts of kindness and, being public about them, then it just inspires more people to show their kindness. So that's going to be a challenge I post all of you listening to this episode. I'm wondering, Margarita, to just you've given us a bunch of ideas already, but what would you say are 3 of the best deliberate acts of kindness, or 3 that you'd like to see in the Breakthrough Success Facebook group?
Well, one of the most important to me is truly people saying please and thank you to one another. That, to me, it's all about the golden rules. In my opinion, Mark, it's not a government that's going to make us greater. It's not an organized religion that is going to make us greater. What is going to make us greater is each individual being and becoming their greatest self. That's where it all makes a difference, right at home, right where you are. There's no point in waiting for elections or this or that. No, it's right in our hands. Each individual being their greatest self is going to allow us to reach our potential as a species and as a society. Like I said, we're all in this together. We have to remember that. So please and thank you, really huge. Smiling, absolute, just a smile. If not one other thing, just a smile. And you will have infused the world in a wonderful way. And the third I would say is if a smile feels a little too challenging, at least making eye contact. It's about that acknowledgement. People have become so isolated, Mark, in our society. They're so detached from anybody that they do crazy things, as we know. We see it all the time. We hear about it all the time. So these things that I'm talking about, these are the kind of things that can help to offset that isolation and the detachment that people feel. So eye contact, a nice smile, please and thank you. And besides which, it is quite nice to have a conversation with somebody. The fact is, if you feel lonely, it isn't necessary, because we are surrounded by people. They're everywhere. So we can always connect with somebody, and it feels really, really good.
Margarita, with the mic drop soundbite, I mean, you could use one of those 3 in the Breakthrough Success Facebook group, come up with your own, but definitely just show that act of kindness. A lot of really insightful stuff in that response. So definitely take all that to heart. And another thing that I want you guys to do, show an act of kindness, go check out Valentino The Love Bunny. We will be throwing that in the show notes for this episode. But Margarita, would you say there are any other places we could find you, follow your work, and keep following you on your journey?
Well, thank you, Mark. Yes, I'm on Amazon. I'm on Etsy. I would love to have your viewers come and visit our website. It tells about how Valentino got started and what his purpose is and what he's trying to do. There's some nice videos on there. People can meet me and get to know what I'm about and trying to accomplish here.
Well, I mean, we will throw all those in the show notes. Once again, definitely go check all that stuff out. But Margarita, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Breakthrough Success. It was such a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, Mark, thank you very much. And thank you to all your listeners.
This episode of the Breakthrough Success Podcast was brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is your business's command center. The easy-to-use app powers your sales, operations, and customer service all in one place. Start a free trial or sign up today to receive 20% off your first 6 months. Find out more at getjobber.com/breakthrough.